Usually the idea of a game is winning and death is not winning. Yet sometimes you can't avoid it. Hi folks, it's Falcon and today on gameranx, 25 games where your death is inevitable. Just as a quick disclaimer for this video, there are a lot of spoilers in this video, so keep that in mind. Number 25 is Nier Automata. Now, this game is kind of a mind job, to use the nicer parlance of that word, and there are several inevitable deaths actually. The story revolves often around death, as a matter of fact, and your characters are not immune. 2B dies, 9S dies, A2 dies, Pascal kinda dies. In fact, pretty much every ending of the game revolves around the death of a character, including the final ending, where everybody dies. Kinda. I mean, it's up for interpretation, and it kinda gets a reboot anyway. Number 24, In a Way Out, which is a tale of friendship born in a prison system and that escapes it. It eventually turns to betrayal, but then retention of the friendship one way or the other. One of the main characters dies no matter what. It's either Vincent, who turned out to be an undercover police officer who was trying to get close to the boss of Leo, and depending on if Leo or Vincent dies, the ending is obviously different. It's interesting because they develop a genuine friendship as the moment after whoever gets shot, it's clear they're still friends despite having killed each other, depending on whoever dies. Number 23 is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which contains quite a bit of death that the player must experience repeatedly from the perspective of the dying Sergeant Gary Sanderson, also known as Roach, shot and killed by Shepard, and then his corpse gets burned. Private Joseph Allen, killed by Marikov. Hell, you briefly play as an astronaut in the International Space Station, which gets blown up, and you get to experience that. Like, you die a lot in this game. Number 22 is Far Cry 2, where you get infected with malaria, gradually get more and more infected with malaria, and then just as you end all of the problems in the game, I think, by the way, the ending's really cryptic and goes by super fast, so if I'm wrong about that, I don't even know if I care. But I'm pretty sure you kill yourself. At least that's what I got out of it when I played it. You kill yourself. Number 21 is Danganronpa V3, which is a bit of a convoluted one on account people are sometimes confused whether or not the deaths at the end actually happen, but they did. As it turns out, all of the choices the characters make continue a game in which they're on a reality TV show based on a fictional media franchise. And although it is a reality TV show, everybody does die. It's bleak. Number 20 is Slender, the 8 Pages, a game where you're supposed to collect 8 pages while Slender Man follows you around. You die when you get caught by the Slender Man, which is inevitable because even after you collect the 8 pages, he still catches you. If you beat the game by getting all the pages and he does catch you, you do wake up, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're alive. Number 19 is Ryse Son of Rome, which after a very long battle, the main character, Marius, is killed by Nero and a guard because they were waiting to kill him. And yet, despite being mortally wounded, Marius ends up killing Nero, and then dies, obviously. That's the point of the video, but I mean, after you're mortally wounded, if you actually kill somebody, that's fairly badass. Number 18 is Assassin's Creed 3, a game in which Desmond, the protagonist of the several games that came up to this point, well, the current year protagonist, realized that he would have to sacrifice himself to save the world from a solar flare and therefore an apocalypse. He did so by activating a device that covered the Earth in an aura, protecting it from the solar flare, and that was that. Except there are a lot more Assassin's Creed games, aren't there? Number 17 is Resistance 2, where Sergeant Nathan Hale is infected with the Chimera virus, a virus that a program to make soldiers that are infected with has been created. Those soldiers are injected with an inhibitor that prevents the virus from completely taking them over, and as you might suspect, during the course of the war, he's no longer able to take those. At a pivotal moment in which the Chimera may actually just completely end the human race, they're able to infiltrate a ship in the final hours before the Chimera virus will entirely take over Hale's body. Long story short, they blow up the Chimera. I mean, obviously not entirely, there's a third game, but certainly enough to stop the biggest problem of all, which is that they were very quickly killing a lot of people, and Hale succumbs to the virus. And so another character shoots him, and that's it. That's you dead in that game. Number 16 is Outlast, in which you are a freelance journalist investigating a presence at an asylum and various areas around it. And the ironic way you die, you don't actually die, but it depends on what perspective you take it as. I'm gonna take it as a death, because the Waldrier, the entity that could go from different host to host, is using you as a host, and you kill everybody. A pretty intense ending, actually. Number 15 is Persona 3, which had an epilogue added to the game in a special edition of the game. The epilogue is referred to as the answer, and in it, it's revealed immediately that the main character died, like sometime between the end of the game and the start of the answer. As it turns out, it was to defeat the final baddie of the game, and although they try to stop it, ultimately they really can't, and a lot of it happens to be about acceptance. Number 14 is Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. The story of two brothers trying to get water from the Tree of Life in order to save their sick father. During the course of the game, the older brother is seduced by, like, a spider lady. And by that I mean she's a lady, then turns into a spider. And they beat her, but the spider does mortally wound him. And he dies, and the water is brought back and saves the father, but at what cost? Number 13 is Heavenly Sword, which we actually revolve our player death around the sword itself. There is actually a cost for wielding the Heavenly Sword, and that is death after the end. And that's exactly what happened. The main character, Noriko, finishes her goals, defeats the forces of Bohan, the king who was trying to start a new golden age by subjugating everyone. And it was kind of a peaceful death, as opposed to a lot of the deaths on this list. Number 12 is Infamous 2, a game in which you essentially act as somebody who has to choose whether or not they're going to save the entire world and humanity. And it finally comes down in a battle with the Beast, the main antagonist, to deciding if that's a battle that you actually want to do. Maybe you just want to be the Beast. The Beast is plenty cool with that. If you choose to go that way, you end up becoming the new Beast, and are bad. You don't die in that ending. But in the ending where you choose to save the world, you basically choose to kill yourself and anybody else who has superpowers, in this game referred to as conduits, which is kind of a grim choice to take. It saves the world, but you die, and thousands of other people die. It's kind of one of those games that makes you feel bad even when you do the right thing, because you definitely had to kill innocent people to do the right thing. Number 11 is Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, in which obviously there's a war going on between two factions. The Earth-oriented faction is the good faction, and Commander Nick Ryse, yourself, are the ultimate good guy. And as the ultimate good guy, you are forced to make the ultimate sacrifice. There are very few stories that are as black and white as Infinite Warfare's, and very few that are as black and white as that don't end in the main character sacrificing themselves. And that's pretty much exactly what happens. You get ejected into space and some shrapnel hits your spacesuit. So, in theory, pressure probably killed Commander Ryse. Number 10 is Star Wars The Force Unleashed, which is a confusing one, but you do die in the end. The canon ending of the game sees the protagonist, Star Killer, defeating Emperor Palpatine, but stops short of killing him, which ended up getting him killed, because Palpatine is Palpatine, and you don't turn your back on Palpatine. In order to save Coda, Starkiller took Palpatine's attack while she escaped, and Starkiller died. But like the second game, it features a clone of Starkiller, so... Number 9 is The Walking Dead Season 1, in which you are Lee Everett, who helps Clementine, who obviously becomes the protagonist in later seasons, and becomes quite a friend of Clementine as well. Unfortunately, he's infected, and Clementine has to decide what to do about it. She can either kill him or leave him to become a walker, and either way, he's dead. It's a doozy. Number 8 is Halo Reach, a game where you think you're probably going to survive, because you do through the credits, but there's a post-credit scene in which you have a last stand against Covenant forces. The Covenant obviously overwhelms you, although it doesn't go badly, you just end up dying. You get to see that Reach is a planet that is restored, so it wasn't in vain or anything, but it seemed like you were gonna survive. Number 7 is Final Fantasy X, which is just a really weird death. Long story short, the main character has probably been dead for a very long time. But but is sort of an astral plane projection dream person who is still alive, but not a ghost. Titus is a real physical person who is tied to Xanarkand, which is tied to Sin, the monster that destroys the world, which destroyed Xanarkand and created this dream Xanarkand, which enabled Titus to live, and in destroying all of it, which you do at the end of the game, Titus also is destroyed. Number 6 is Shadow of the Colossus, a game where you don't quite die, but you are more or less taken over by an entity and transformed into a different being. And in fact, it's actually kind of the point of the game. During the course of the game, you think you're doing something productive, but really you're just freeing an entity that more or less ends your life. There's no real indication that the character of Wander actually survives, so I'm just going to assume that the entity that is Wander is dead. Number 5 is Bioshock II, in which you play as a Big Daddy. That means you have to rescue little sisters, yada yada. It's a much more complex story than that, but pretty much no matter what, you, Delta, a Big Daddy prototype, die in the end. If you rescue all the little sisters, it's a kind of a nice happy death, where Eleanor absorbs your personality and memories. And if you don't, Eleanor absorbs all of your Atom, which is the stuff that gives you powers in Bioshock for the uninitiated, and decides to take over the world. And if you did some kind of a mix between rescuing and harvesting little sisters, you, Delta, will either die the you get absorbed and she goes on the world domination thing, or you can stop her from doing that, but you will die while doing, like, every single one of these endings you die in. Number 4 is Red Dead Redemption, a game in which the protagonist, John Marston, after a long time trying to exact his freedom in the form of amnesty granted by the US government, attempts to return to a quiet life, but is eventually ambushed by soldiers, government agents, and other lawmen who obviously went back on the whole amnesty thing, who intended to kill him. And they did kill him, obviously. But he repelled them long enough that his kid got away, and his kid, Jack Marston, went and exacted revenge for his father's death. Number 3 is BioShock Infinite, a game that plays on many worlds theory and forces you to consider some pretty intense stuff. In one of the many worlds, the many universes, the many dimensions that Booker DeWitt has to deal with, it's found out that he actually becomes the main antagonist of the game, Comstock, and in order to avoid doing that, he has to die before anything happens. That means before the events of the game, he has to die before being baptized, born again, and becoming basically a dictator. But hey, you get to see Rapture first. Number 2 is LA Noire, in which you, Cole Phelps, a detective, solve a lot of mysteries, and one leads you into the sewers. There are other people down in the sewers with you that you get out, and during the course of getting them out, you get killed because you get washed away by a pretty intense wave. It's a pretty harsh one because it's pretty easy to develop kind of a connection with everybody in this game, and they all feel the loss pretty hard. And finally, number 1 is Mass Effect 3. And this was the cause of a lot of controversy. No matter what choices you made, no matter what ending you got, no matter what path you traveled down, Commander Shepard died. Whether it was in a renegade option in which all of the machine life is killed, whether it's in synthesis where the machines and the organic life sort of merge, or do the control the Reapers option, Shepard dies. Also, it's kind of a not clear ending, to be completely clear, I guess. But you die, that's clear enough. Did you think it was fair you died inevitably in any of these games? Did you think it was unfair? Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. And if you like this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed, now would be a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, so click the subscribe button and do not forget to click the notification bell. As usual, thanks so much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.